Hello, welcome to another ORG podcast. I know it's been a while, but we've all been busy, haven't we, in the lab? But special guest today, and we're talking about the Mara appliance, and I have a lot of questions about it. So I decided to bring on an expert, and this expert is Brandon Farley, the owner, the president and founder of Cottonwood Labs. So let me bring him on. Let's just get started on this. I'm excited about it. Brandon, I'm glad you're joining us on the podcast.
Welcome.
We were just talking about, what is it?
Welcome from Salt Lake City.
Yeah. Welcome in Utah. How's the weather there?
We've got some snow-capped mountains, and it's kind of chilly. You can see your breath out here. So.
No way, that chilly.
Yeah, getting cold.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah, we got a cold front come in, so it's kind of nice here. Oh, and Josh is saying hi. He's watching.
Nice.
But the reason I want to bring you on was the Mara, and you have been doing a lot of lecturing, and you did a great lecture at our conference last year, and I missed it, and I wish I would have seen it. But I did talk to one of my friends, Jason, and he took it, and I go, "What'd you think of it?" He goes, "Looks like I'm starting to do the Mara appliance." And I was like, "Man, I don't know anything about this appliance." So I was hoping you could help me learn more things today. And I purposely didn't do more research for this because I just wanted to be able to ask natural questions. So my first question is MARA. What does that stand for?
Mandibular Advancing Repositioning Appliance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the appliance is an acronym. That's where the name comes from. So nothing too fancy. Obviously, I'm not the inventor of this appliance, and we just like to make a lot of them, and it's been something I've been wanting to share with the rest of the orthodontic lab community. So
yeah, and I appreciate that because we don't have many out there that are willing to share their knowledge. You've made a lot of these. I mean, let's say, can you give me like a monthly, like an average, or what's the most you've done in a month or a week as far as Mara appliances?
Oh, I would say on average we're doing 10 to 15 a week.
Oh, wow.
We're usually not hitting less than 40 a month. It's a substantial product that we bring in, a lot of revenue with overall in our lab, and it's been very successful. It's been through the years, we've slowly developed it, and it's taken me close to 5-6 years to really understand this appliance and become what I would say like a professional at manufacturing it.
Yeah.
It's a lot like a jigsaw puzzle, to be honest. So
that's a good way of putting it. I think a lot of appliances in the lab are jigsaw-esque puzzles like that. So what does this okay, so this advances the lower jaw forward. So it's for class 2 correction, or can it do class 3 also, or is it just a certain type of correction?
So as far as these things go, I think you always have to be careful about stating claims and making things go forward. But
what does the doctor ask for?
A class 2 bite correction, and you're to advance the lower mandible. Most everything we do is in reference of the models and the positioning of the models and how we set that up for the doctor. And then we allow him to kind of dictate what that final outcome is. But we don't make any claims necessarily that this appliance is there for treatment of that specific malocclusion.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that. Yeah, I meant to say, what does the doctor ask this appliance to treat for one of his patients? So,
and they're coming to us, talking to us. And I think that's the most important aspect, is that this appliance is very involved, and many times I would say about a third of them I always have a doctor question, and that's kind of why I've gotten more involved in trying to spread the appliance. We used to make, and we still do, make these for other labs, but we find that making them ourselves tends to be a big barrier for the other labs, because it really adds about a week to the turnaround time. And the idea, I think that turnaround time is absolutely crucial on your doctors. You have that patient that's ready to go, and that doctor is determined that they're in a growth spurt and they want to take advantage of that growing bone. So yeah, it's really important to do these, but we're always happy to make them for other labs. You send them to us, we give you a discount. And I think that it's a good way to get your fingers wet and see if you have a market for it as well. Not everybody does. I think that they tend to be very regionally popular or not.
Right. And I was actually talking to a doctor of mine on the phone. We were discussing something else, and he was talking about he started doing the Mara, and I had no idea, because I'm small lab. I don't do the big, huge, complicated appliances like that. And I go, oh, I know somebody that was training on that, and I mentioned your name. He goes, I think I just watched a video on him online. So he ended up on your website somehow, and was watching. He needed to know how to adjust the arm or something on there, and he got to your video on there. And yeah, I think you're making a good point. It's good to educate ourselves, so that we can answer doctors' questions if they have a question about this, because I didn't know. But I've been hearing a lot about it.
And there are a lot of questions, and we currently have about 3 videos now just for the Mara. One is talking about the adjustment, and it's good resource for the doctor and understanding the elbows. The other one was actually just a video of the presentation I gave at the ORG last year. And then we also have one about elbow lengths, and we can discuss all these things and kind of breeze over them, because I think they're all important topics. But educating people is a big part of making sure that this appliance is successful. And I think that even if you're not going to fabricate them, you need to understand this appliance so you can ask the right questions to the doctor. Once again, it is an intensive appliance that needs doctor feedback a good portion of the time. It's not just a Holly retainer where you understand what's you're just holding things in place. So
yeah, I found your YouTube video, and like I said, there are your videos that you're educating other labs and other doctors on these Mara fabrication and things like that. So I'm glad you're putting this info out there for us to learn. And your goal is to kind of like you said, you're willing to make the appliance for a lab, but with the long goal is the lab making the appliances themselves.
That is correct. Yeah, that's okay. Where we like to correct everybody. Yeah, and I'm happy to share my resources and how it's done, and to make sure that you're making these correctly in your lab. I mean, it comes from everything from just making sure you have the correct tubes to the correct welder, and even making sure you have the right electrodes. I mean, every little bit makes a difference in making this an effective appliance in your lab. There's so many hurdles to stumble over, and that's why I'm doing a training course. I have a we have a fall training course going on this weekend, as well as I have a spring training course next year, and I have a booth at the ORG that we're going to be doing some shorter reservations. You can spend about an hour and a half with me, and I can kind of go over some welding techniques. Last year we did the presentation, but people just didn't get enough hands-on, and I really want to help support that and give people the support they need to be successful at this. So
yeah, and we'll dig into these more toward the end, but like he was saying, this, if you go to orthodonticresource.com, this is the conference info is under this button here, the big black one here. If you click on that, it goes to the info on the conference, and right under that is Brandon's 2-day training course, hands-on, like in your lab, going over the Mara appliance or learning how to construct it. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's 6 seats are open for that, and we focus on pretty much an easy, a medium, and a hard appliance as far as looking at the 3 different scenarios. If you already have experience making these, which I think it's good to kind of start to get your feet wet before you come here on the classes or come to the ORG for that fact, and we can kind of address what needs to be adjusted in order to make you more effective at these things. So,
well, let's jump into your overview of, like, what does this thing look like? I was just now showing a picture. What does this thing look like? What is the overall concept of construction? And I can show your page here.
Yeah, so I've got some clips. I don't have the whole thing up here. We don't need to review everything and kind of make this a little bit long and I think boring, but I kind of wanted to discuss some of the topics too that I feel like are the most important idea when it comes to fabricating. I think, of course, understanding the bite setup is super important. This was actually out of the Dentarm's Orthodontic Appliance Manual. That was the author, Scott Hugh. You really need to understand the difference between Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. I got my start with Herbsts, and they've been a great appliance. So really got to understand the placement of this jaw and what's happening. I think where people can run in a lot of trouble is this appliance is not as easy per se as a Herbst, because if you have variation of a crossbite from the upper and lower jaw, a Herbst is connected and you can see if there's any alignment issues. And you can actually have a patient in crossbite and still get advancement with a Herbst. Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, because it swivels, or there's a better side-to-side motion, I guess, in the Herbst.
Yeah, you have more articulation for lateral movements and going into excursion.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
we're visual people. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah. So that's one of them. But you're going to see the problems faster with a Herbst because those arms have to line up. And if you don't have them lined up, and if you're checking the Herbst properly at the end, which you should be, you should have a Herbst articulated, and then you should check that function of that Herbst on the articulator before you solder, and then after it's done. If that's off, it's going to bind, and you'll feel it binding. But with Amara, it's a lot different, and that's where it comes in. I mean, I think what people don't realize too, and this is one thing that I talked about in the presentation, in any kind of Class 2, when you advance the lower arch to a Class 1, you can have a relationship that wasn't in crossbite and goes into crossbite. So you can see here on the Class 2, as I advance that model here, it shows it in crossbite. This is represented, the red line shows the buccal surface or the buccal plane, the plane of the buccal cusps of the upper model. And then the green line here shows the plane of the buccal cusps on the lower. You can see once this is advanced, you can see this is advanced edge to edge. You can see the ghosting of the lower model. As you advance that lower model, you get into that crossbite. And so this, you need to understand what the doctor needs and what the doctor wants. They might be addressing the crossbite later so that you have to set these elbows up in a manner that's going to function in that crossbite, or you're going to have an expander. This is one of the toughest things to understand in this appliance. And I would say that 70% of our phone calls to the doctor are this issue right here, trying to understand what's happening.
Like doctors, when you say phone calls, you mean the phone calls into the doctor's office, or the doctors are calling you with this issue?
No, I'm calling them and saying there's no expander on this case. They're showing in a crossbite. Do
Oh,
you want an expander on this case, or do you not want an expander? And then that changes everything from that point
oh,
forward.
gotcha.
So if you make
'Cause
this thing wrong at this point, you're going to be remaking it. Whether here's the thing, the problem comes down. Sometimes the doctor doesn't know until the patient's had it for 6 months, and
Oh, interesting.
your problems aren't always popping up on delivery. So now you have a patient who is doing well. They're getting advancement. They're getting expansion, and then you didn't understand this problem, and now you're stalling that whole process. And this is also costly to your lab because number one, you're going to be remaking it for. I would hope if you didn't do it correctly.
Right.
Then on top of that, the patient really loses out, and you got an angry doctor on this. So.
And this is a because you can take the models and you hand articulate edge on edge, and you go, I see a crossbite that can happen here, and you're passing that on to the doctor and go, fair warning, do you want an expander on this, or are you going to deal with that later?
And you don't have to have an expander, but it's all how you set it up. So that is shown in my video. We talked about that. Here's your basic, just understanding the difference between class 1 molar to molar and class 2 molar to molar is very important. So once again, the electrodes. So it's kind of getting a start into some of the basic. Are there any other questions you would like to ask on this?
Well, okay. Yeah. If you so there are different type. Okay, you said that in your training you'll do an easy case, medium case, hard case. So it's all in the design of the case depending on what's going on in the mouth, pretty much. Uh-huh. So there's not like take these Mara components and slap them on a model and there you go. You actually have to do some measurements and some pre-treatment measurements that you report back to the doctor.
Yeah, you should have an idea of what's going to happen with the case by the time you're done with it. So you really need to know where you're going to end up. You've got a starting point, an ending point, and in easy cases, that's not such a problem. But when you're dealing with more complicated cases, that's where, the rubber hits the road and you prove yourself as a lab technician,
A good point. Now, is there are these done in bracket treatment or before bracket treatment? Or can it be done at the same time?
That's a great question. I would say it's always a mix. So a lot of times the doctors have tried not to use any type of major appliance in their treatment, and then you get them at the end for some reason. And I don't ask. I just see that some of these cases come in with brackets, and the arch is pretty much well developed, and we're in class 2, and we just need like 3 or 4 millimeters of advancement. So maybe that was in their treatment plan, or maybe that they try to avoid the appliance and get the patient, where they need to be. Sometimes I've even there's a rare case where these are just used for aligning the midlines a little bit too. They can't get that shift in there, which that's all important. So yeah, I think that tends to be part of the mix. And there's always difficulties, it's never just a straightforward appliance once again. So.
And the age of the patient comes into, obviously you need the sixes, the first molars in. Is there too young? Is there too? Obviously, there's a too old. I would guess, unless you have done these on adults.
I don't know as far as the success rate for adults. I don't think we get that many that are older adults.
Right.
Usually younger patients. We do see. In this case, would be a very typical. You can see here that the second molars are starting to come in. This is a very straightforward case on what we would see. This does have an open bite, which makes it a little more difficult. But overall, the age tends to be younger. Is there too young? The issue that we have is, are the sixes erupted enough to properly size a band or crown? Sorry.
Right.
We size our own crowns these days. I mean, I don't have a single doctor that sets their crowns anymore. And I think that we've become very effective and accurate at sizing and crimping crowns. But when you don't have that molar fully erupted, your other option is to actually band the E or crown the E. So that's a good way to handle it. I have an example here, which I also am willing to teach on, and how we handle that. That completely changes the formula too, because you're shifting everything forward, and then you have to accommodate for that advanced placement of that crown, because all of this is now forward right here. And so how do you get that elbow more advanced is the magical question.
Right. It's kind of like moving the axle of a car forward. It just changes the whole, the function of the car. It doesn't ride very smooth, or it bounces too much, or it's a stupid example, but that's how I pictured it in my head. You're moving the whole axis forward.
Well, and then on top of that, we've really moved towards, in those cases, that is where your golden ticket is laser-centered bands. We recommend, that will be another phone call you make to the doctor. Hey, this 6 is not fully erupted. I can't accurately size onto this. Can we do the E's? And once we go to the E's, we really do recommend to go laser-centered. And then we do cover part of the 6s. There you go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Now that's where we got the 6. We didn't have to put it on the E, but sometimes we do put it on the E as far as the lower cam. But if you look here, we've added on to the E's, which they need to bond onto, because that's such a short clinical crown. Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was picturing whenever you were talking about that. So, yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you about the age and stuff. So,
yeah. So, I think the one thing that we tend to focus on too is just the importance of how everything lines up. I really think you have to make sure everything lines up properly. In the training course, we can talk about these scenarios. If you're working with me, I'm happy to answer questions. You can text me photos of your current case, and I can kind of help walk you through those things. But I think the one biggest thing to take away as far as like the importance of a proper setup is just make sure everything's square and set up properly so that you can address any advancement issues. What do you call that square arm? What do you call that? So I call this here an elbow. And
okay, the elbow
that it engages with. And we talked about, when you go back to the class 2, that's the problem with this advancement, is that, if you're expanding, you've got to set all of this and anticipate where that's going to be after the expansion's done. And this cam, you do not want to jump that. You've got to make sure that this is aligned properly with that cam. So if you see this cam here, you have a blue and a green line, and that's where you want it hitting that cam. If you're too close, what's that?
I don't see your mouse.
Yeah, that's too bad.
What's the cam? Is it the? Oh wait, I see.
Let me see if I can highlight this for you.
Okay.
You guys could see. I don't know if I can. If I can draw.
Draw.
Let's draw. Draw freehand. Here we go. Draw freehand. There we go, buddy. Okay. So you can see
Yeah.
this
Oh no, I don't
line
see it
here.
either.
Can you see that?
I don't see the
All right, there
drawing.
we go.
Oh, I see it. I
So
see it now. Okay, there we go.
Um, will help you. You've got to hit that into that area, because when they go into excursion once again, or they'll jump that cam, and that tends to be a big issue. If they expand too much and you didn't place that to end up there, because that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to hit that target. They're going to have to expand, and then that needs to come together so that it functions properly. Now, the cams I've started using. They're on order right now, but I've added an additional at least 1.5 millimeters to this here that gives you that ability to have a little more wiggle room if you don't hit that as much. Because this cam is so narrow in this area, as you hit that edge, it's slippery and it just slides around it. So when you look at our elbows too, that's one of the reasons on our elbows that we, let's see if I can, you can see this part right here.
Yes, yeah, I see that.
Crucial. This does two things to that. This keeps that from engaging into that cam and locking in place. And then the other thing is this sets up a standard distance from right here to create a standard stopping point for your shims, because that shim actually backs up into that point.
Oh, I see the shim now. Okay. And those are what doctors can add to, if they need a little more advancement, kind of like on a Herbst, add shims to it.
Yeah, all of our Herbst are designed with that 2 millimeter shim in there. It's super important to do that because it gives your doctor adjustability to adjust the midlines. I wouldn't make a Mara without that shim in there.
Okay.
Then you pull it out and then make that adjustment. And that's one thing we found was this was pushing up in here, and it was just always different. This is a lot of work. The other issue that we've had and that we really pay attention to is, if you look here, is the tolerance of this elbow wire, this wire here that goes through that tube. Unfortunately, the tolerances are within a thousandth of an inch, at least on ones I manufacture. The reason I like a tighter fitting wire in that tube is because if it's looser, you can get more excursion in play, right? And if you have more excursion in play, then you have a higher chance and probability of jumping those cams. You'll put on everything, you'll make it, it'll look good, and then all of a sudden your movement has to be consistent. If your movement's not consistent, then you have no control where this goes, and everything that you set up could be off by 4 millimeters. It's really no joke. So if that tube and elbow are off by 0.03 of an inch, it will equate, that lateral movement will equate to an additional 2 to 3 millimeters sometimes in movement. You know, from side to
wow.
So you could get an extra, I'd say, millimeter this way, and then get an excess millimeter the other way, and it can get even worse. And what happens is because you have that play, you start to round out those parts, and you lose that squareness. The other thing is you round out those parts. I've actually seen these break on the buccal surface because these parts aren't proper matching. So that force goes on that buccal surface and it pops it out. But usually before that, you'll get this completely honed out to become a round tube if you don't have that matching correctly. Because that patient's always fighting on that stuff. So, and these are the small things that it's taken us so long to make sure we're refining in ours. The issue that you have with that is when the doctor goes to replace that, and we just tell our doctors that, like, these are all matched to come together, because there's so much inconsistency in the manufacturing process. It's very complicated the way these tubes are actually manufactured. These tubes are extruded, and then they are actually, anyone who's doing metal laser sintering understands this. And then when these tubes have to be heat treated and sintered. So they heat treat them, and then that actually reduces the size by 15%, 10 to 15%. So
oh, wow.
That heat's never equal along that entire tube. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
I love to get into the details on this a little bit, but these are the things that just throw these little nuances that have been so hard to understand over the years, and polishing these down. So what we do is we size every elbow to its tube to make sure that we have a good fit, and we lose a portion of our inventory doing that because it just doesn't. They don't fit together. So we're sitting there matching for hours, making sure these things match up. Yeah.
Oh, wow! Because you could get to the end of the extrusion and the walls are a little thinner, or during the manufacturing process. So there's a chance that they're not all exact, and you have to actually find a good fit in there. That's amazing. That's man, that is detailed.
They're just bigger. The diameter changes depending on how hot that part was in the sintering chamber, right?
And then you introduce the forces of the mouth. Josh has an idea. Green wheel everything.
You can green wheel it. We prefer using once again, that tends to be ineffective in that sense because you don't know how much you're green wheeling on each side. So we really like to just kind of use the ESMA, and you just stick it in there, and then you test it, and then you see how it fits into the tube.
What's an ESMA?
The ESMA is an electropolishing machine that acid and electrolysis to polish. So it really rounds those parts out. The issue is you'd love to do it on the tubes, but it's all line of sight, which I actually learned that. So if your metal doesn't have line of sight to the electrode, it doesn't mean it's gonna polish that. So that's the problem with things like tubes, is on the inside you don't have that line of sight to the ESMA to polish it. So
yeah, I'm lost on that. I've heard of electropolishing, and I've never done it before.
It's nice to have, and especially if you're getting into the laser centered bands, it's nice to finish those things up. We use it for all sorts of finishing of appliances. The one thing about the ESMA though is it is metal specific. So if you're going to do silver solder, it has to be a silver soldered. If you're doing stainless steel, it needs to be stainless steel. Each metal has a different type of acid solution that you have to use with it in order to get the desired output. If you put titanium into it, it absolutely just oxidizes. It just does about the opposite. It'll turn black. So I've made that mistake where I've thrown that. I go, well, let's polish this up nice. Titanium is so brittle. And
learned the hard way. Now the parts on the Mara, are they all stainless steel?
What's that?
Are the parts on the Mara, are they all stainless steel? Unless you deal with chromium cobalt laser sintered bands?
Yeah. The archwire tubes are the Leone archwire tubes. Standard stainless crowns Leone. And then, these elbows, arms, everything else is stainless. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so much going on in such a small area on this.
It is. These shots were taken with a 200 millimeter lens I bet you I was about 5 feet away from it.
No way.
So I get a long lens and I back off of it and then I zoom into it to get that close up. Like a macro lens I find is nice, but you can't get that detail, I think, as much as I don't know. I'm not a photographer. I did take 2 classes of photojournalism in high school. So, but
You're one up on me. I just push buttons till it looks good.
and I'm using an SLR still, so I think that's crucial for good photos. All my website photos, all my appliances, and I mean these are little side streets we talk about. This is why it's so important to come to the ORG, guys. Like, we have so many conversations. You start talking about something like this, and I feel like so many times unrelated things are brought up outside, and just we can't stop talking. The whole time.
Yeah.
No one shuts up.
Oh yeah. Well, when you find somebody who has the same passion as you, you just start talking, and you find you have the same problems, you have the same issues. Some people have already solved that problem you have, and you may have the solution to someone else's problem, and you start talking, and it's just great to come to one of these. And you're going to be scheduling. Would you call it hands-on that you'll be doing, or just like workshopping?
I bought a booth at this one because, and I still might do a class. We've kind of talked about that, thrown around. I know a lot of people were, the last class was well attended. That was when I did the presentation online. I'm happy to do another presentation. I'm not sure, but what I wanted was people to have the opportunity to come in if they were truly interested and work with me hands-on. And I think that's the point that I want to make, is that everything from the type of welder that you're using to the electro wire that you're using is going to make this appliance in a much faster way. I show people how to make their own wires. I even offered to sell some wires. If you need wires, electrodes, I'll put them together for you. Obviously, I add a little profit in there because it takes time out of my day, but I'll also tell you what you need. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but you got to use a 12 gauge wire, else you're just not getting the same amount of power. And I think that's something really interesting. I mean, all of my tack welders now, I use a 12 gauge wire. It just tends to be so much more effective. One thing I noticed was when we were welding is you wouldn't get the tight welds that you wanted. They would come loose. And that's really where this comes down to, is that you've got to get these welds down, else you're just going to be crying at the end of the day if you make 3 of these.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just looking at this, there's so much going on. And I see some welds up at the top, on the top of the square, that are just tiny.
This is all tack welded. Just here, just a little bit here, just a little bit here, before it's soldered. All that's holding this thing together as you're trying to construct it and make sure all this comes in the line is just small little tack welds. If you don't have a good tack weld, they just break loose and it crumbles. And you're spending 4 hours making this. And I would say that's about how long it should take you when you first start them. I would do it at the end of the day when you're not getting phone calls and trying to sit down for 4 hours and struggle through this thing. Don't think that you're going to do this last minute.
Yeah. You're going to have to really carve out be very specific in your carving out of your time. And doing that. So 4 hours, and because so it's a lot of, not, I don't want to say trial and error, that's probably not the right word, but it's a lot of test fitting, and making sure all the measurements are there and you have it all. So you're using a tack welder like you would put brackets on a band type of tack welder.
Yeah.
And then a pulse arc welder, and you're talking about that's the electrode. You need a 12 gauge electrode in your pulse arc welder, or do you use a laser welder to finish these up? You said solder too, so.
Very rarely do I laser weld these or pulse arc them. I'm just tack welding them, and that's where
okay,
comes through. Yeah, because you'll notice that your wires are jumping. That's when I first noticed it. You'd sit there, you tack it, and your wires would move because there's so much resistance, and it's creating I'm guessing, I'm not a physicist, but I'm guessing those are jumping because it's creating an electromagnetic field or something, and they're actually reacting with other things around them. But they would move, the wires would. So once I upsized to larger electrodes, they stopped jumping, and then the welds became so much better. I also noticed we were having failures with our equipment. I think the higher, I mean, we're turning these things way up. There's a lot of electricity going through these. And when you don't allow that current to go through, I think it blows out the caps on your welders. So we were sending our welders. Yeah,
so what kind of welder is it? The capacitor's inside. So what kind of welders is this? Like the brand?
It's a TAC 2 is what it's actually called. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a TAC 2 welder. It's actually just, once again, it's from the jewelry industry.
I was going to ask if it was specifically made for our industry, or is it one of those that you brought in from another industry?
That one was a smaller one from Great Lakes, which they stopped making. I really like that one. It's still not as effective. I put that up there too. I can pull it up. TAC 2 welder.
Because I'm just. Oh yeah, the Great Lakes one cheap. Came up.
Interesting. Let's see if this guy. So this says 1,500, but.
This is the Great Lakes. You said they stopped making.
Yeah, I have not tried making that. That seems like they resurrected the Great Lakes one.
Oh, okay.
TAC 2 welder. Here it is. Well, that's the TAC 3.
Oh my gosh! I think I almost found it. Yeah.
Did you?
Well, it says page not found.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too. Yeah, it's a small image of it, but that is it at the TAC 2 jewelry welder. It's ABI. Sorry, that's ABI. So, and we also use. There we go. Let's see if I can pull that up. Man, it's hard to find.
Yeah, so that's what I was. That's a good thing to cover is basic equipment you need to make one of these, and I'm sure you cover it in your hands-on because you get to actually see it in use.
Well, and that's I do, and then on top of that, like you asked the question, you know, are you pulse arc welding these? No, it's so much extra work to do those. Really, it revolves around solder. The whole idea is you've got to just build up that solder around there and have a good tack. As long as you do that, and that's shown in my video. I'm very clear in that video on how to build that up. In my class, we're going to do some light soldering, but I'm not going to show you how to build, you know, set crowns and things like that. We're focusing pretty much on what I like to call the spotting of these parts, and making sure that they function. So, but yeah, I mean, anybody who wants, just give me a call. You've got my contact information. Did we put that up there? You can email me with some questions. There you go.
Yeah, and you supply some parts that people may need.
Yeah.
To do this, and let's talk about your 2-day.
I'm happy to make sure that you have everything you need to start these things from start to finish. So I'll get you set up and going. It's not a small investment, though. I think that's the thing. I mean, that tack welder is $1,700, but if you're going to be making a bunch of these, it's really what you need in order to get the power for that welding. If you want to try other things, but the second you start crying at the workbench, just
a lot of tears. A lot of tears that Brandon has already cried, and he's telling you this setup works.
You know, I can remember that was like my first week as a lab technician in-house was over Christmas time, and I had the keys to the office, and I almost did go to tears, wondering how the heck I'm gonna my doctor just bought all this equipment, and dealing with broken teeth, trying to fix labial acrylic is not fun over the Christmas weekend. So.
Oh, yeah. My heart sunk a little bit for you.
Just like anything, guys, it's going to be trial and error. I remember my first retainer I delivered took the doctor 45 minutes to get it in the patient's mouth.
Probably all of us. But you're doing a hands-on course where you teach, okay, don't do it this way, do it this way. And you actually have, that's this weekend.
Yeah, it's going on this weekend. We're doing it. So, yeah.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and we might add another one in here too, guys. So, it's been really successful. But with that too, if you look, come out here, stay. It's beautiful. There's a lot of links. I don't know if this one, I might send you another one that if the links are working on this. I had one that the links were having troubles with. But you can reserve it on Calendarly. And there you go. So this is the same way you would reserve at the ORG. So if I'm there, I'll have a link, and then it's going to be a shorter class though, guys. It's going to be more like, I'd get your hands into this, get it started, figure out what you don't like, bring me a case that you're working on, if you can do that. But coming in there and we can get you started. I'm going to give about an hour and a half of time per person. I might do 2 people at the same time as far as training, but I don't want this to be diluted. I really want to be able to have some valuable time with you guys and show you what I've learned. So
I think it's going to be big valuable. So if you go to the conference, so you have a hands-on happening in May. In April, we're having the conference, and let me pull this up. I'm not clicking the right button here. Hold on. Here we go. If you go to the front page, orthodonticresource.com, and you click on Build Your Future Ortho Lab, which may include doing Mara's, you can get more info on here and a basic course intro here. You'll have to send me your course info so I can put it in the thing here. And then, of course, you can see more of the speakers. And as we get closer and closer to it, we'll have a course on here, and there'll be a link for his course, for Brandon's course in the future. So keep an eye out for here. Again, you can do your hotel reservations now. And we are having an early bird special right now for the next 61 days. The tickets are $800 a person, and it's 2 full days of ortho lab education that you won't get anywhere else. I keep saying we're the largest ortho lab conference in the world, and I'll wait for someone to prove me wrong. But it's $800 a person, but for next 61 days, you can get it for $550 a person. And if you are a ORG member, you get an even more discount. You get another $100 off of that. So you get to come for $450, and you get to bring extra people with you. So if you have a lead technician you want to bring to talk with Brandon about Amara, starting to do Mara's, you can bring them for $100 off their ticket too. So there will be a link right here if you're a member, and you click there, and it will take you to where you sign in. Oh, share this tab instead. Where you sign in, and you can get your discount there. But sorry, I didn't mean to take a tangent like that, but I wanted to let people know.
I think it's a great introduction, and I don't know if we need to continue to talk about it, and I think I've kind of gone over some of the basics here. I've got my videos, check them out online, and do you have any other questions, Dave?
No, I think that proved to me that I need education on this. This isn't something you can just pick up on a weekend and learn how to do. There's a lot of education and a lot of things you got to think about to start doing these.
If you get an account and you don't know what to do, like I said, we are always happy to help make them for you. It's not the shortest distance between two lines, that's for sure, but it can get you started, and we'll do our best to make you look good. So.
Yeah, and I love your thoughts of it's let us help you get into this. And when we were talking about before we started streaming, you may have a doctor that wants to try one of these, and before you buy however many parts for making these, you may want Brandon to make them for you to see if the doctor wants to keep doing them.
Yeah, I think with the welder and all in, you'd be about $2,700 in order to do that. One thing I do recommend, and it's shown on my video, is upgrading to a hydro torch, which is another additional expense.
Oh, yes.
Are you using a Smith's Jewelers torch, or what are you using to solder?
I'm using a handheld blazer torch.
Okay, Kid, so we can get you graduated here, buddy.
I used to have a Hydroflux, and there is a hydrofluxwelder.com, and they sell refurbished ones. I'm waiting for them to come in stock again.
Really? So you said you used to have one?
Yeah, when I worked at another lab, they had one, and I missed that thing. So you're using... Oh, here we go.
I can pull this up really quick, because this is a good alternative. You got the Smith's Jewelers torch? Oh, wait. Well, that's the hydro. You just see how small that flame is.
Yeah, I missed the hydro. The hydro...
You just can't beat that. And it's so that's what we use. What do you think those run? I think are they around $1,500 to $2,000?
The Hydroflux? Yeah, I think they were $1,200 for the refurbished ones.
Yeah. So that's
that is not
a good deal. And then if you look here, if you want to show, I got this on the shared screen. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I've got the Smith's Jewelers torch. Well, this is not.
Let me pause this.
No, that's not it. That's not what I think.
Oh, we're still on your... we have to drag it over to the screen you're sharing.
Smith's, here we go. Is it not pulling up? Let me hit share again. Because it's not letting me share this screen. It's just sharing that image.
When you go to share screen, there may be some tabs at the top of, do you share a tab or a window or a screen?
There we go. You see that?
Oh, okay.
I don't endorse.
That's what you were saying.
I have no clue who this distributor is, by the way. I'm not endorsing this distributor. It's just the first thing that pulled up. But this is a next step. I would get away from the blazer torch. Now you have to own your own bottles, but look, it comes in a kit like this, and you've got these small little tips here. It's $167. Now the one thing is you want to use acetylene with this, oh
really?
You need to just get small. Yeah. The good thing about acetylene is it burns hot and it's lighter than the air, so you don't get the risk of ignition and pooling if it leaks. So,
oh yeah, it's real heavy. It's heavy. See, this looks like this looks like the same thing. Yep. This JBC and Company. I'll have to ask Priscilla if that looks like it, right?
I'd get Priscilla in on that. Yeah, she completely probably understands the. I mean, Priscilla just knows everything inside and out.
Yeah, she does.
I'm
Yeah.
always impressed with her knowledge and what she's done. Um, so I would ask her about that. She's got the different tips there, as well as you need the regulator. And then you're going to have to buy your own bottle if you get a small. Because if you get a full size acetylene bottle, I mean, you just get these little mini bottles. That's usually through Airco or Prax Air, or you can check some other people within your local area. But I just highly recommend this. I've never done the Blazer Torch. This is actually what I got my start on.
Yeah, I would not even attempt this with a Blazer Torch. You cannot get that thing small enough. For doing RPEs and stuff, you can do them all day. But yeah, Josh says, yeah, it's an investment. Josh also said we use an SRA Aqua Torch. Works great, about $1,800. I'll have to look into that. Never mind. Inflation upped the price to $22.50. Thanks, inflation.
So SRA, that was what? The SRA. Maybe we can just have a SRA Aqua Torch. Okay. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah, I've been only familiar with the Hydroflux, and I have. Oh, this looks like it.
So we.
Oh, that.
The only thing that I've known with the Hydro Torch is the. Oh yeah, there you go. Similar. You know, it might be worth trying out too, because if Josh could tell me what his turnaround time, because a lot of times those Hydro Torches are on back order. We keep 2 on hand, and when one goes out, we got a backup.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
8 months on the Hydro Torch. So maybe this is if you can get a faster turnaround time on something like this, I would recommend it. So
yeah, and like you said, the little Smithy torch would be ideal, because you go to a welding supply place, and it's easier than ordering from other places. Oh, okay. Josh sent us a link.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. We give that Smith, if you're still using the regular Blazer Torch, guys, give the Smith Jeweler Torch a try. I mean, for a $500-600 investment, it's going to be night and day, and your solders are going to look. You're not going to burn the models up. I mean, you've got so much more control over that flame. So
yeah.
Email me if you got any questions regarding it. Make sure you are always safe. You hold, you secure the bottles down into a proper, storage.
Oh, you don't put the chain on it and that kind of that's a great idea.
Flammable, and you just don't want to knock those compressed bottles over. So.
Well, and that's where I think your hands-on course would be great, because you would give them hands-on with the torches you have in your lab.
Yeah, I've got one here.
Yeah,
got a Smith's Jeweler Torch. If you want to come here and see what that looks like, I just hands down say you should be moving into that direction, anyways, guys. So make that your first move. So
I'll call next time I talk to Priscilla. I'll ask her about it, see if she keeps those in stock, and then start working with. There's a welding place down the street from me that I get my argon gas for my pulse arc welder, and but yeah, I have been missing my Hydroflux. It's been a few years, and I was like, man, I miss that little tiny flame. But being able to upgrade that to be able to do these more complicated appliances like that is an easy investment for sure.
Well, and none of these investments, except for the materials, is going to be limited to only this appliance. Your whole product line is going to benefit if you do these.
Yes.
If you buy these products, if you get the better tack welder, it's going to save you time. One thing I've done, I mean, every single one of my work benches at Wire has a tack welder on it. Every single one of my workbenches have a handpiece. I remember and I don't think it's that way anymore, but I remember working at another lab, and none of the wire benders had a handpiece. You had to get up from your chair, go walk over and trim at a central trimming station and wait in line sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So,
I started doing that myself when I built this lab. I was like, I'm having my own handpiece. I don't want to share with the wife anymore. I've got to kick her out. I got to reset these teeth, or I got to grind this ponic in, or I got to round off the end of a wire.
Doing retainers, or she just trimming her nails with it?
Oh yeah, she doesn't have any nails. She pumices. she pumices all her nails off. She gets mad. But speaking of price, you were willing to talk about price, because getting this kind of investment, you're talking about what you think you can do with one of these Maras, right?
Yeah, you can get 310 to 320 for the Mara, and then if you add the RP in there,
and then it goes up.
Yeah, and one thing I've had conversations with people before is you don't need to give a discount on the RPE because they're adding it into an existing appliance. I mean, they're getting the benefit of that expansion appliance in there. And they're charging their patients for that, guys. So just be aware of what we're doing and make sure you're charging fairly for what you're doing. And granted, guys, I'm going to tell you straight up, these are going to take 4 hours for you to do your first one. And just like anything, it's not going to be profitable at first. But once you get your speed up, you should be able to completely do one of these from start to finish, I would say in no more than 2 hours. You could probably, if you get really good at the bench, the wire side should take you roughly 30 minutes. Maybe, I would say 45. Give yourself, good time would be 45 minutes once you're up to speed on wire, setting all the tacks up. And that's also doing the lingual arches. So you're doing a lingual arch, TPA. Yeah, I'm including that. So adding the band set in there. So that's an hour to get it ready for soldering. And then we know soldering, once you get good at that, I mean, soldering right. 10 minutes. And then if you're good at soldering, you're not going to have to grind away a lot either. So right. These are things that you refine over time as you get going, and then pumice and polish it all. It starts to minimize it as you get further down the road on what you do. So they can be profitable. If you're concerned about that, like I said, send to me. I'll get you. You can make some money off of it, and we'll make sure we make you guys look good and make your doctor happy, and assure that you've got an account that can handle Mars too. So,
right. Well, Josh, I'm thinking of the comment. Brandon, I'm glad you joined us today and sharing your knowledge with us. And we're a little over an hour or so. But everybody, contact Brandon. There's his email, and he's willing to help you with finding parts, assembly. Look into taking his hands-on course in beautiful Utah, and come see us at the conference for sure. Brandon, you got any last words of?
Please come to the conference, guys. We'd love to see you there. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it hands-on and at the conference, and then after the conference is his hands-on in May, and you can just keep continuing your education. But I think we will end it there, and let's see if I have my fancy little end thing. Oh, yeah, here it is. But I'm going to end it there. Thank you for tuning in. Ask any questions below. We'll try to answer in the recording, and we will see y'all next time.